So, the first mixed martial arts event held by the UFC took place on the 12th of November in 1993. The event was held at the McNichols Sports Arena in Denver, Colorado, and had an attendance of 7,800 people. The co-creators of the event were Art Davey and Rosier and Gracie, who put this together to determine which martial art would prevail when pitted against one another. Fighters that were involved had come from many different martial arts backgrounds, such as sumo, savate, kickboxing, karate, jiu-jitsu, boxing, shoot fighting, and taekwondo. The event's slogan was that there were no rules and also no weight classes, no rounds, and no judges. The only pathway to victory would be to knock out or submit your opponent, or the opposition's corner could throw in the towel. The structure for the event was an 8-man tournament, with the winner taking home $50,000. And as I already told you guys, this UFC event was back in 1993, so there were no rules, and the commentators of the event were Bill Wallace, Jim Brown, and Kathy Long. So now, let's start with the fights in the quarterfinals. Gerard Gordu versus Tayla Tuli. The first fight in UFC history pits Dutch kickboxer Gerard Gordu against the Hawaiian sumo wrestler Tayla Tuli, who outweighs Gordu by nearly 200 pounds.
I hope that I win the tournament and I don't make mistakes.
They circle to start before Tuli rushes in to try and pin Gordu against the fence, but eats some punches for his efforts, and Tuli loses his footing and ends up on his knees next to the cage. Gordo takes this opportunity and kicks Tuli square in the face, which causes one of Tuli's teeth to fly out of the octagon, landing near the commentary desk, and then follows up with a right hand to the face for good measure. The referee instantly stops the fight. Tuli isn't happy about the stoppage, but he is a bloody mess with his mouth busted open, a cut over his eye, and not to mention missing a tooth. The entire fight lasted a whole of 26 seconds, but this was quite an eventful opener for the first ever UFC fight. So, Gerard Gordo defeats Tayla Tuli by TKO and moves to the next round. Kevin Rosier versus Zane Frasier. In the second quarterfinal bout, we have former American heavyweight kickboxing champion Kevin Rosier fight karate champion Zane Frasier in another clash of fighting styles. Rosier looks like he has the size advantage as the fight gets underway, and he puts the pressure on Frasier from the get-go, landing an overhand right and knee, which ends up dropping Frasier. Then, after taking an elbow to the back of the head, Frasier pops back up and they begin to trade against the fence. Frasier lands some knees and punches of his own and starts landing good uppercuts that have Rosier in trouble as both fighters start to tire. Frasier manages to get Rosier down and lands a knee before they both pop back up again and start engaging against the fence. As their fight continued, both fighters got really tired and their punches started coming more slowly. Soon, Rosier starts landing more punches, causing Frasier to drop against the cage. Rosier then turns to foot stomps, which causes Frasier's corner to throw in the towel to save their fighter from receiving any more damage. This fight ran a lot longer than the first, with both fighters gassing out toward the end. I think Rosier had a little more in the engine, and Frasier just ran out of steam. So in this round, Kevin Rosier defeated Zane Frasier by a TKO, and their fight lasted 4 minutes and 26 seconds. Ken Shamrock versus Pat Smith. The third quarterfinal of the night had shoot fighter Ken Shamrock, who was the #1 ranked fighter for the Japanese promotion Pancrase at the time, against kickboxing champion Pat Smith. The fight gets underway and Shamrock comes out quickly and gets Smith in a body lock, instantly taking him to the ground. Looking clueless on the ground, Smith just holds onto Shamrock so that he's unable to strike him. Shamrock then decides to drop back for a heel hook, and Smith attempts to strike Shamrock with kicks and elbows, but eventually taps out. This was another fight that didn't take long. Ken Shamrock states post-fight that Smith had no knowledge of submissions, which made this fight easy for him.
How is this like the bout you do in Japan each and every month? easier. Why? Because he doesn't know how to do any submission.
So, Ken Shamrock defeated Pat Smith by a submission, and their fight lasted for 1 minute and 49 seconds. Royce Gracie versus Art Jimerson. The final quarter-final matchup was between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master Royce Gracie and boxer Art Jimerson. Jimerson oddly comes out wearing just one boxing glove, whilst Gracie enters the octagon wearing a white gi. The fight begins and Gracie throws a few kicks to keep Jimerson at bay, and then explodes forward by taking him to the ground. Working quickly from side mount to full mount, Jimerson begins to panic as Gracie begins landing some strikes, and before Gracie even attempts a submission, the boxer taps out due to frustration and panic of being pinned to the ground. It was a strange ending to the fight, but the inevitable happened as Jimerson looked doomed from the moment the fight hit the floor. So, Royce Gracie defeated Art Jimerson by submission, and their fight lasted for 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So moving forward to the semi-finals, the first fight we got was Gerard Gordo versus Kevin Rosier. So Gordo had a quick fight in his quarterfinal bout as it only lasted 26 seconds, whereas Rosier was pretty tired in his first fight as he had a near 5-minute brawl with Frasier. The fight starts and Rosier is the one doing the pursuing. Gordo fires off some leg kicks to keep him at bay, which causes Rosier's leg to buckle. Gordo then follows up with a combination dropping Rosier. Gordo keeps his distance but keeps rushing in whenever Rosier begins to climb to his feet. As Rosier begins to turtle up, Gordo lands some nasty stomps, causing Rosier's corner to throw in the towel. So this was yet another short fight, as Rosier came out looking to put away his opponent quickly, but was met with the fresh kickboxing skills of Gordo. So in the first match of the semi-finals, Gerard Gordo defeats Kevin Rosier by a TKO, and the fight lasted for 59 seconds. Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. So this was the most anticipated fight of the evening so far, as both Gracie and Shamrock looked to have knowledge of grappling skills and both defeated their opponents quickly in the quarterfinal bouts. The fight begins and Gracie looks for the takedown right away, but Shamrock defends well and ends up being on top. Gracie lands some heel strikes from the bottom and Shamrock attempts to grab the leg for a submission, but Gracie defends well and soon he is the one on top. Shamrock sits up and attempts to grab the leg again, but this time Gracie switches to side back mount and wraps his arms around Shamrock's neck using his gi to choke him, and Shamrock taps. The referee didn't seem to see the tap, but Gracie shouts at the ref assuring that he did indeed tap, which Shamrock doesn't protest. Well, this is the first competitive fight of the evening we saw take place on the ground, with both Gracie and Shamrock showing their grappling skills with the Brazilian coming out on top. So in this fight, Royce Gracie defeats Ken Shamrock by a submission, and the fight lasted for 57 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the event of the evening you've been waiting for, the finals of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. One of these two men will walk away with $50,000.
So, the final fight of the night was Royce Gracie versus Gerard Gordo. So basically, the final bout of the evening was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus kickboxing. The fight begins and Gracie looks immediately to take Gordo to the ground. The Dutchman defends well and they end up against the fence in the clinch. Eventually, Gracie gets Gordo to the ground and quickly gains the mount position. He lands a couple of strikes, including headbutts, to prompt Gordo to turn his back. Once his back is turned, Gracie wastes no time in locking up a rear naked choke and taps the Dutchman a few seconds later. This was another short fight for Gracie, who made quick work of all his opponents on the night and was rewarded with the $50,000. He celebrates with his family in the cage afterwards, saying that it was his technique that won him his fights. So, Royce Gracie defeated Gerard Gordo via submission and became the champion of the first ever UFC event. So yeah, that's all for this video and thanks for watching.